So this video is going to be my version of a video which I saw recently by a fellow booktuber, Britain at Some Okie Dude. Check him out if you haven't. He recently did a video about books that have consumed him, and his video in turn was his version of another video done by Steve Donahue. And I saw his video and I thought, I could do that. I could talk about books that have consumed me because there have been books that have consumed me. And so that is what I am here to do today, to talk about the books that have consumed me. Now, by the word consumed, I mean books that have impacted me, books that have influenced me deeply, books that I just find myself thinking about all the time, books that might be called to mind by something that I see in the world, books that live in my head rent free, if you will. So that's what I'm here to talk about, and I have some fictional works and some non-fictional works. So without further ado, let's get started with, no surprise here, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. This book is probably the first book that I can say truly consumed me, because I used to think about this book all the time, and I do still think about this book all the time. Especially given the fact that this book ages like fine wine. The more that we advance technologically in the world, the more this book becomes relevant and applicable. And so, you see stuff in the world sometimes, or I see stuff in the world sometimes, and this book is just immediately called to mind. The hubris of men, of how people want to play God, want to do things that they really don't have a right to do, that they have no business doing. And, I'm just reminded of Frankenstein, the man who built a monster and which ruined him. Again, I just find this book ages like fine wine. There's just so much of it applies to the world, and applies increasingly to the world, like I say, because as we advance technologically, our potential for harm and malfeasance increases. And so I think that Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is just a perennially pertinent book, and it has consumed me. Again, this is my favorite book of all time. I have not reread it in quite some time, but I've read it. Actually, I don't know how many times I've read this book, but I love it. Probably always will love it. And I think it will always be a book that has the ability to consume me, just because of how relevant it is and always can be to the world. So, yeah, first book, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Now, next up, we have a twofer, if you will. No surprise here either. This is going to be, I still have the tabs in these from the last video I did about these. Cormac McCarthy's The Passenger and Stella Maris. These books were the most eagerly anticipated books of my life. I don't think there will ever be another book or books that I await with bated breath quite like I did these two. These were the literary event of my life, I think, and they didn't let me down. They did not let me down. These books were poignant, but also deeply thought-provoking, and these books consumed me and continue to do so because of the questions that they ask, and they really highlight the fact of just how little you can know about the world sometimes. Are we just mice caught in a maze? It's both, like I say, deeply poignant, but also deeply cerebral. It's a book which questions, the human capacity to understand the world, the cosmos. It's about a character who is, or the first book anyway, is about a character who is caught seemingly in some kind of Kafkaesque conspiracy, while pining for a dead sister, and who he kind of carried a torch for. And, a lot of people were disappointed by these books. A lot of people were disappointed. I freaking loved them. And again, they consumed me because, the more you know that you don't know. That seems to be the way of things, right? And these books just kind of stand as a reminder to that. They kind of stand as a testament to the folly of, human endeavor to really know, the inability to fully comprehend, right? These books consumed me when I first read them, and like I say, they come to mind all the time. So yeah, books that have consumed me, these are two right here, The Passenger and Stella Maris. Now, we have next up a big one, one of the biggest books that I have ever read in my life, and that would be David Foster Wallace's Infinite Jest. I want to say up front, this is possibly the only like postmodern type book of this ilk, and you know what I'm talking about, that I actually really liked, that I actually really loved. Again, I don't like Gravity's Rainbow. I've read some other like postmodern stuff, and I have not really, like If on a Winter's Night, a Traveler, didn't really care for that. This is like the only postmodern, big, kind of trippy book that I have ever read that I truly loved. And I do love Infinite Jest. This book truly, truly consumed me when I first read it. I read this back in college, and I remember I would show up every day like way earlier before my classes even started, just so I could go to the library and sit in the corner and read this behemoth of a book, because that was how much I was into it. Like, this book truly consumed me, because it's fun, because you kind of have to, again, if you've read it, you know, you have to put the story together to actually figure out what happens and in what order, right? But after I read it, it has consumed me since, because of how prescient it was as regards its perspective on entertainment and kind of emergent technology pertaining to entertainment, and the deleterious effects that it can have on human psychology and the capacity for interpersonal connection. This book was ahead of the curve, especially now that we have things like Netflix, now that we have things like TikTok and whatnot, and of course the ever present like internet pornography, right? This book really understands how people can lose themselves in that, rather than connection with other human beings, but also in forms of entertainment that are more demanding, such as books. Again, this book is written in a very specific way to force the reader to engage with it in a very real sense, because you have to flip back and forth, right? It's like the tennis match, right? You have to flip back and forth and bounce those the middle sections back and forth as you move through the book. And it makes you engage, because it's kind of wanting to draw the reader out of apathy and such. And again, this book, even though it's goofy and kind of, slapstick vaudeville type thing, Wallace definitely had his finger on the pulse of some very real and very important issues. And I think this book has much like Frankenstein, it has aged like wine, given, again, that we now have at our disposal so many avenues of escape. But what are we really doing to ourselves, right? Like, what are we really doing to ourselves as people that we're like, we have like, just a huge mental health crisis now, because and there's just kind of an atomized society now of people that don't really have any desire anymore to like connect with people, that would really just rather vegetate and watch Netflix and porn. And this book understands that mindset, and it tries to fight it. Like, it really did try to fight it. Wallace really took a stand with this book, trying to highlight the issue, but also trying to combat the issue through the book itself. And, I got to respect that. And again, this book, it definitely is one that has consumed me, just because of how on point it was as regards certain things. So, Infinite Jest, the only big, thick, postmodern book that I can say that I've ever really loved. But what a book, right? We lost Wallace too soon, but Infinite Jest, his book, has truly consumed me, if any book ever has, I'll say. And next up, we have, again, a book that's probably not going to come as much of a surprise, or it may, because you'll say, how is this book one that ever had the power to consume you? But that would be Dean Koontz's Intensity. This book is absolute proof that inspiration can strike from the most unlikely of places, because This is just a mainstream paperback thriller novel, but nonetheless one that impacted me greatly, and which I do find myself thinking about a lot, is increasingly given the state of the world in which we live, because the central question that this book has at its heart, and that's the cool thing about Intensity, is that it's not just meant to be entertainment. It is entertainment that is asking some questions and is kind of drawing out some points as regards character and mindset and whatnot. And again, the central question at the heart of this book is, I think, can be summed up as, what are you really made of? And that's a question that, again, I find myself asking increasingly of myself. Is, you see things in the news like people getting stabbed for absolutely no reason by lunatics, teenagers just beating people indiscriminately for shits and giggles. I mean, we're literally almost like living in a Clockwork Orange, it seems like. But this book really does ask a very vital question, and again, I think that question is, what are you really made of as a person? Because the central journey of the main character of this book is from survivor to fighter, someone who just wants to keep their head down, doesn't want to draw attention to themselves, just wants to go along to get along, doesn't want to stand up and be counted, so to speak, but then has to alter their mentality in order to combat a very real and a very vicious evil. And that is a question that has stuck with me ever since then, because unfortunately I saw so much of myself in the main character, someone who didn't really want to, uh, draw too much attention, who wanted to kind of just go along to get along. But no, you cannot be that way in the world of today. You've got to ask yourself, what are you really made of? Are you gonna save the girl, or are you just gonna turn tail and run? I think about this book quite a bit, increasingly, I would say. And also, this book's perspective on evil is one that didn't really resonate me the first time I read it, but has increasingly come to resonate with me as time has gone by. Because the thing about Dean Koontz is that he does not go in for a bunch of Freudian psychology when it comes to villainy, about, well, maybe they weren't loved enough, or maybe mommy abused them or whatnot. No, evil in Dean Koontz's books, or at least in this Dean Koontz book, is a very elemental force, which is a conscious decision to harm other people, and which extracts joy from doing so. It's not something that you can psychoanalyze or reason with. It's just something that you either have to fight or get killed by. And the more I think about it, I'm like, yeah, I think that's actually a pretty good mindset to have, a pretty good perspective to have, is that there's real evil out there in the world. And like, I'm not saying that like there aren't people out there that haven't been twisted psychologically because of circumstances. I'm not saying that, but to think that all evil out there in the world is a result of that because they weren't held enough as a child, or and mommy didn't love them enough or whatnot, to think that all evil out there is like that is dangerously wrong. No, there are people out there that are just unironically just absolute evil, that are just monsters that want to hurt other people, and get have a great time doing it. And you got to be able to fight. You got to be willing to fight, and that's what Dean Koontz's Intensity really said to me. That's why this book really spoke to me, and that's why this is a book that has consumed me. Again, increasingly, because the world we live in is just spiraling off into total chaos and depravity. It seems like every time you turn on the news, it is like something out of a Clockwork Orange. And this book really asks that burning question: what are you really made of? What kind of person are you going to be? The kind that saves the girl, that risks it all, or the kind that just turns tail and runs and then hides back in their house and doesn't want to come out and lives in fear like some kind of cowed animal? That's what this book is about, and it means a lot to me. Dean Koontz's Intensity absolutely has consumed me, and again, the way things are going, increasingly so. So those are the fictional books that have consumed me. Now I have a couple of nonfiction works that have consumed me. The first of which is this book right here, Isabel Paterson's The God of the Machine. This book covers a lot of ground. If I can get it to stand up here, I guess I'm just going to have to hold it. This book covers a lot of ground. It covers history, philosophy, and also economics, and it is concerned principally with the necessity of freedom to the individual and consequently to society. Why societies which prioritize freedom, which allow the individual to direct their own course and steer their own ship, will always outpace and excel planned societies and authoritarian regimes. But also, it covers again that's just some of it. It covers a lot. There's a lot in this book, and it's not a long book, but it also has some things in it which have directly impacted my own thinking, in particular education. There's a chapter in this book towards the end, I believe, which talks about education, the nature of public education, and it can really be credited for changing my outlook on public education, because I used to be a huge proponent of public schooling. I thought public schooling was a great idea. I thought that it was a really positive thing. But now I am ardently against public education. There's a quote from this book that Isabel Paterson says that runs something like, "A tax-supported compulsory educational system is the complete model of the totalitarian state," and I pretty much believe that now, especially with some of the things that we've seen recently. I am ardently against public education now. In this book, it can be credited at least somewhat for that. But again, it's also kind of a history of modes of governance in the world, from the democracy of the Greeks to the republic of the Romans to the constitutional republic of the United States. It's also kind of a history of the United States and how the United States has corrupted itself from its initial conception with some of the amendments which have been made to its constitution. Again, valuable stuff, vital stuff. This is a book which is also the single most impressive work that I've ever read by an autodidact. Because the funny thing is that Isabel Paterson criticized public education. She had virtually no public education of her own. She had virtually no education, period. She was a total autodidact who grew up on like a farm in Canada, virtually no schooling, but she read voraciously. I would say that this is truly the work of like a genuine, like, bona fide genius, in my opinion, because it is so impressive. Someone that has no or virtually no formal schooling was able to write something as broadly encompassing as this is, which covers so much and which uses such vigorous reasoning to defend the positions herein. It is truly just it is a tour de force. This book, it absolutely consumed me, and again, it consumed me to the point that it really changed my outlook on some things, or at least in part, because again, I am ardently against public schooling, public education. I think it is a recipe for indoctrination, basically. And also, at least here in America, it is a dismal failure. American kids are the stupidest kids in the world. Some of the stupidest kids in the world. Again, just massive teachers unions for just the shittiest results imaginable. The Department of Education was a catastrophe. American education is horrible, but also there's so much of it that is just insanity, just absolute insanity. So that's why I am ardently against public schooling now. And it's partly because of this book, but also this book covers aspects of economics and stuff, and how vital freedom is to any kind of like society that's worth living in. Like, again, this was written during World War II, so it kind of comments on Nazi Germany a bit, and it talks about how the Nazi Germany, it's just kind of, it's the necessary outcome to certain assumptions that area of the world had given into. And also, this book is vital for how it speaks out against materialism, because materialism is, again, a recipe for disaster. And I see that now. I didn't see that quite so much prior to reading this book, but now I do. When you lose sight of the fact that a human being cannot be broken down into solely material terms, that there is, for lack of a better word, a quote unquote spiritual aspect to man, then you are headed for some pretty bad places. This book just rocked my world. And it's so underrated nowadays. It is such a forgotten gem. I mean, this is an absolute gem of a book. It rocked my world, changed my mind on some things. It still consumes me because there's just so much that I see now that this book was right about. So yeah, book that has consumed me, a nonfiction book that has consumed me, Isabel Paterson's The God of the Machine. And now finally we have another non-fictional work which has consumed me, and I hesitate to even call this a book. Rather, I will call this a booklet. But that would be Christopher Langan's The Cognitive Theoretic Model of the Universe. This is, bar none, the hardest thing I have ever read in my life. I didn't understand all of this. I probably didn't even understand most of this, but of what I did understand of this, I was shook. This book shooketh me, because this book may truly just explain everything. And, you know, if you're not familiar with this, you may say, well, that is one hell of a claim. But it really may explain everything. There have been people in the past, and I'm sure there will be other people who claim that they have truly formulated a theory of everything that can explain all phenomena in the universe, how the universe operates, how it came to be, what the point of everything is, and the relationship of man to the cosmos and everything. But dang if Christopher Langan really may not have actually done that. I'm serious. Now, the haters will say that this is just word salad, just absolute incomprehensible gibberish. It is not word salad. Take my word for it. The Cognitive Theoretic Model of the Universe, or the CTMU, if you will, is not word salad. First of all, word salad generally denotes something that's pretty lengthy, pretty verbose, and wordy. This is not. This is only, how long is this? 83 pages. Again, it's not word salad. It is incredibly dense, incredibly hard to understand. But that's just, and the fact that he uses invented terminology does not help. But still, it's because he's doing the ultimate thing here. He's trying to explain literally everything, and I truly do believe that he may just have, like, this booklet, if you will, has the potential to convince you that God actually does exist. And by God, I don't necessarily mean like some kind of like sapient entity, but rather some kind of intelligent consciousness which pervades everything. It also kind of explains how the universe progresses, how it shapes itself and forms and reforms itself. It's just absolutely just an absolute trip. Again, I don't claim to even understand most of this, but what I did grasp of it was enough that I was consumed. It truly consumed me. This is a genuine bona fide theory of everything, and the fact that it is so tautological, or if you've read it, you'll know super tautological, means that it's very difficult, if not impossible, to refute, because there's nothing that he says in here that isn't grounded in some kind of demonstrable or a priori truth. It is truly just one of the most astonishing things that I've ever read. It really may explain everything, life, the universe, and everything, the nature of God, the nature of man. It really may explain everything in only 83 pages. This truly consumed me. I still think about this all the time because of just how audacious this is, and also how it actually may back up its claims. It really might. So yeah, another work that consumed me was I won't say that this is a book, but a booklet. That is Christopher Langan's The Cognitive Theoretic Model of the Universe. Just totally consumed me, totally did. So yeah, those have been the books that have consumed me. that have impacted me deeply enough, that live in my head rent free, as I said, that I find myself thinking about just all the time, that can be called to mind by things that I see that might be applicable to things that I see. So yeah, this is not really a tag, but you can take it as a tag. Like if you want to do a video out there about books that have consumed you, feel free, have at it. I'd love to hear some of the books that have consumed you. But yeah, these are the books that have consumed me. I hope you have enjoyed. And if you have, remember to hit that like button and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And until next time, peace.